Greetings to all and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about forgiveness. Forgiveness has been mentioned hundreds of times in L&L research channeling transcripts over the years, on stopping the wheels of karma, the seemingly unstoppable cycles of negative thoughts and actions, large and small. And almost always is forgiveness of self highlighted as important as, if not more important than, forgiveness of others. In a world so dominated by service to self, entities, and energies, why is it that forgiveness is such an important key to our spiritual evolution on the path of service to others? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found on the list of study groups at the L&L Research website shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook group, and twice a week, Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time and Saturdays 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week with the Zoom links and information on what we're talking about that week. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as recordings of our monthly Q&A sessions with Jim McCartney. Just go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to get notifications when we upload new videos, and contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you'd like to sit in on any of our Q&A sessions. As mentioned, today's topic is forgiveness. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Panelists, go ahead, let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Jasmine.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jasmine Harris. I'm calling from Gurdon, Arkansas.
So great to have you back on, Jasmine.
Thank
and
you.
Morris?
And I'm Morris Hoagland calling from Lafayette, Louisiana.
So great to have you back on too, Morris. For our viewers who didn't know, Morris Hoagland is Vice President on the board of L&L Research and has been Vice President on the board of L&L Research for 40 plus years. Old friend of Jim, Don, and Carlos, and is mentioned a few times in the Raw Contact as well. So always a joy to hang out with both of you. Looking forward to our conversations. Did want to remind our viewers, of course, that none of us here are authorities or experts on the Law of One. Not even Morris. We're all more or less normal people like you, just having a conversation about spiritual things that seem important to us. Anything that any of us say could be wrong. You're welcome to disagree with anything. For those of you who are familiar with the Law of One and the entity known as Quo, you might want to skip ahead to the chapter on forgiveness and karma. Otherwise, for those who are new to the Law of One, you can think of it as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one, and that one thing is love. Everything that we're reading together today came to us through the process known as channeling. Channeling can be thought of as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, inner planes beings, spirits of deceased, higher self, etc. Channel basically serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through. And in this case, those entities would appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. There are two types of channeling that have been developed by your friends at L&L Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, unconscious or subconscious, as if asleep, meaning they are not aware of what words are coming out of their mouths as they are saying them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Ra back in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they're only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're speaking them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo, starting in the mid-1980s up to present day. Who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at fifth density, Latui at fifth density, Hatan at fourth density. You can think of a social memory complex as a planetary consciousness. It would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one single group mind or consciousness. You can think of densities or dimensions as different levels of consciousness or different levels of reality, since those two things are so closely intertwined. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of earth, fire, water, and air have some form of consciousness, as many indigenous cultures have been saying for centuries. We would call that first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants and animals. clearly a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of what we would refer to as inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans and cetaceans like whales and dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of plants or other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of the social memory complex. Again, as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one single group mind. Clearly a significant leap in consciousness above and beyond that of an individual person. You can think of fifth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond fourth density. You can think of sixth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond that of fifth density. It is quite a bit more complicated than that, and if you want more details, check out our podcast episode on densities and dimensions. Otherwise, for now, suffice it to say, the entity known as Quo appears to be a group entity made up of three planetary consciousnesses: Ra at sixth density, Latui at fifth density, Hatan at fourth density. First contact with Quo was made by the LNL research channeling team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. They have been channeled every month since then, up to present day, by the LNL research channeling team. Session transcripts can be found in the LNL research conscious channeling library shown on your screen. Having said all that, let's take a look at a couple passages on forgiveness and karma. On March 23rd, 2024, not that long ago, Quo said, "The concept of forgiveness is that which is based in love, or forgiveness is the ability to give love and acceptance where there has been separation or injury or the ignorance of the behavior that has been created that then needs to be forgiven. The forgiveness may be done whether or not is asked for it, for you are a powerful being and the Creator has given you the power to stop the wheel of karma, which continues as long as forgiveness is not given or granted. Thus, when you forgive, whether you are asked for it or not, you exercise this power to stop the wheel of karma for the one who has perhaps wronged you or created dissension or difficulty between you, or has been in your sights, shall we say, looking around the world and seeing places where there are difficulties and workings of one entity against another that have caused problems that would need forgiveness. If the entities were able to do so consciously by sending the love of forgiveness to them, you surround them with that quality which they may be able to perceive so that there is forgiveness and the stoppage of the wheel of karma which is being created by the disharmony between them. This is what any spiritual seeker of truth can do to provide the seeds of forgiveness to the world around you so that they may grow by that love that is called forth by your meditative qualities of sending the seeds of love and forgiveness to all who may need such." That was a really long passage to start with. Sorry for throwing all that verbiage at you. For our viewers who are not familiar with the word karma, it's a spiritual teaching that goes back to ancient Hinduism that could be thought of as cause and effect. Whether it's positive or negative actions, the consequences of those actions can be thought of as something that is like a wheel that will continue on until, in the case of negative karma, according to Quo, forgiveness is what is needed to stop that cycle of negative thoughts and actions. There's a lot in this passage to unpack. Let me start with Jasmine. Jasmine, any thoughts on anything in particular from this passage?
The one thought that I had is, I suppose, in the second paragraph, where it talks about consciously sending love and forgiveness to an entity that you perceive has transgressed against you, perhaps. And my first thought when reading this is, why not? I mean, what does it really cost you? How does it diminish you by simply choosing forgiveness? And I'm sure that in the podcast today, we'll get into a lot more detail. But essentially, withholding forgiveness seems to be a way of punishing the other person, when in effect, you're the only one that's punished and you're the main one that suffers. I mean, I could give examples of people that have come up to me decades later and asked, "Would you please forgive me for doing this or that to me?" And as God is my witness, I had totally forgotten about the incident, yet they've carried that burden for 2 decades. So my first thought is, and I really don't say that lightly, I know there are many people out there, perhaps in your listening audience, who's had some, shall we say, unforgivable things done to them. So I know it's easy to sit here and say, go ahead and forgive them when someone has done something to you so horrendous that it defies the concept of forgiveness. But I suppose that's our challenge, isn't it? Is to learn how to forgive even in those situations. So if you can forgive in those situations, just imagine how forgiving you're going to be when somebody cuts you off on the freeway or moves in front of you in the grocery line.
For sure. Yeah, and I think we are, in fact, going to look at some passages, taking a deeper look at that. Because, yeah, as you were speaking, for sure, I think it's not too difficult to forgive someone who said something mean or something nasty to you once recently. Might be another thing to forgive someone who was an abusive parent or an abusive spouse or someone who actually raped you or somebody you know. That I think would be a much more difficult thing to forgive. But as you said, that is sort of the big challenge that all of us have been given, to find those ways to forgive what seems to us to be unforgivable. What do you think, Morris? Any thoughts on that or anything else from this passage?
Well, a couple of things. I really like what Jasmine just shared with us. Uh, when it comes down to our difficulty of getting into forgiving, really is tied up at the ego. We feel like we've been wrong typically, and we identify as separate from the other people that have wronged us. And it's that ego that gets in our way and prevents us from being able to forgive at times. Our ego is really good early in our development because it helps us survive. But as we evolve spiritually, we get into families and then tribes and into larger groups, and we learn to be much more accepting and give up that separateness that we had that's driven by ego and take on more of a community position. We're all children of God, and recognizing that is sometimes a challenge. The other point, and you covered what karma is. Karma is essentially, we think about good karma. Most people think about bad karma because if I've done something bad, I have to reap the balancing of that somewhere along the line. So forgiveness, what our contacts are sharing with us here, is we're stopping the wheel of karma by forgiving. So it becomes a very, very powerful tool for us to break out of a cycle of tit for tat by learning how to forgive and letting go. And as Jasmine so correctly said, we relieve ourselves of that burden of carrying those thoughts of how we've been harmed through the decades, as she described.
Yeah, indeed. It's funny. As you were talking, I was thinking, yeah, we never really think about breaking cycles of positive karma or good karma. I haven't really thought of good karma as being like a wheel that's unstoppable unless you do whatever the opposite of forgiveness is, I guess. But yeah, otherwise it does seem that negative thoughts or actions can certainly be problematic, certainly for wanderers. I'm remembering the passage where Ross said something to the effect that when wanderers come here from sixth or fifth or fourth density down to third density to help, if they become karmically entangled with other entities, that can make it difficult for them to go back to their home densities. Karmic entanglement, I would take to mean doing something that involves hurting others in some substantial way. Would you agree with that, Morris? Is that your understanding of karmic entanglement, doing something hurtful to others?
It is indeed, as you point out, karma is simply energies being balanced. And we're not particularly interested in stopping the wheel of karma when it's good karma. If we bless someone else, we don't mind being blessed again. We're not trying to break that wheel of karma. But if we wrong someone, we need to be able to take a step back and understand what's taken place there, forgive that person that's wronged us, or forgive ourselves, because the other self and us, we're all children of God. We're all part of the one. And being able to comprehensively forgive is what we're trying to learn in this lifetime.
Indeed.
And,
Which I think
I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Mark Morris said, kind of expand it a little, perhaps. One of the things I've noticed in the last few years, I suppose, are this is my term, proxy victims. Have you noticed that there are people out there who perhaps have not been directly transgressed against in a particular situation, but they have taken up the perceived pain and the perceived transgression done by others, and now they hold animosity and they withhold forgiveness in their heart. It's like, again, they're victims by proxy. It hasn't happened to me, but it happened to you. So therefore, I'm going to hold animosity and withhold forgiveness for the person who hurt you. And to me, that's really very, very sad because I think most of us have enough of our own issues. In the law of one, they call it catalyst. But I believe that we have enough of our own negative cycles in our human energy field to contend with and to transmute into the love and light of the one infinite creator without absorbing other people's negativity and holding it in our own energy field. So yeah, definitely forgive, forgive, forgive.
that makes sense.
Jasmine,
And
you expressed that really well, because what you're talking about is an extension, actually, of ego. We talk about how ego keeps us from being able to forgive. Well, we can take that, for example, into a racial ego, because we can certainly see in the history of this country and around the world where groups have been discriminated against horribly, and yet someone who's been part of a group, whether it's Jewish or a Black person or an Indian, American Indian, who have been part of a culture that has been horribly discriminated against, tend to sometimes hold on to that. So it's an extension of ego, because I'm identifying with that discrimination that happened even to other people.
Exactly.
So that's an excellent point you're bringing up.
yeah, yeah, and that all makes perfect sense to me. I think I would only offer, perhaps as another way to look at it, that having empathy for the pain and suffering of others, I would think is part of the service to others path, and that you don't have to have somebody do something hurtful to you to feel the pain of it. If you see somebody doing something hurtful or harmful to others, then that is also an other self that is being hurt or harmed. So doing whatever you can to minimize pain and suffering for all, I think, is a very Buddhist practice concept that may apply to the law of one here. But having said that, that doesn't change anything about forgiveness. I think we're still all agreeing that the idea is to still forgive all for whatever transgressions they've done towards you or to others. A lot of good discussion on this passage. I think I had one other passage to look at. Anybody have anything to add on this one before I change the screen? Let's take a look at a shorter passage. This is from the Raw Contact, session 18, question 12. Questioner says, you stated yesterday that forgiveness is the eradicator of karma. I'm assuming that balanced forgiveness for the full eradication of karma would require forgiveness not only of other selves, but forgiveness of self. Am I correct? Ra, I am Ra. You are correct. We will briefly expand upon this understanding in order to clarify. Forgiveness of other self is forgiveness of self. An understanding of this insists upon full forgiveness upon the conscious level of self and other self for they are one. A full forgiveness is thus impossible without the inclusion of self. I think this is something you were suggesting earlier, Morris, that forgiveness of self kind of goes along with forgiveness of others, since all is one. Does that sound about right to you? Does that represent what you think they're saying here?
Well, absolutely. Forgiving the self is part of the forgiveness cycle. And it's often harder, we're much harder on ourselves often than other people. Other people, we can identify their wrongs, and even things that we've done wrong, we'll often project them onto someone else. But when we've done something that we have recognized was truly a bad idea, we sometimes have a hard time forgiving ourselves. We're the hardest on ourselves. And I actually have a little bit of a method that might help someone that's working with forgiving themselves. There's something, you can find it on the internet, it's called Ho'oponopono. It actually comes out of Hawaiian culture. I know several people in a local spiritual group I participate in religiously use the Ho'oponopono technique as a way for recognizing that this is an issue where I'm not forgiving myself. And it's basically recognizing it. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And as you go through this exercise, each time that thought comes to you, you kind of wash it out of your system until you've let go of it completely and it stops reoccurring to you.
Beautiful practice. I know it has come up many times in our Zoom sessions as well. There's many in the Seattle study group that practice it as well. For viewers who are not familiar with it, I'm going to take a stab at spelling it correctly. Let me know if I'm off, more, as I believe it is Ho'oponopono, as in Ho'oponopono. Is that right? Am I remembering the name correctly?
Very well.
Yeah, beautiful practice. And like so much else in the Law of One, you're taking it on faith that when you are saying, I'm sorry, forgive me, I love you, thank you, that it is making some sort of difference on a metaphysical level in time space, even if you don't necessarily see it in space time. But I have heard many people say they have healed relationships through that practice. Are you familiar with that, Jasmine? Anything to add on this, or anything else from this passage?
Actually, I have heard of it before, haven't practiced it. What I've done in the past, and I think I may have mentioned this in a previous podcast, is I have perhaps a slightly different belief, but I do believe that the negativity that one has related to things that they perceive that they did to others, or that others have done to them. I believe that you carry that negativity in your human energy field, and it affects virtually everything: your physical body, your emotional state, your psychological state. So, that being said, the goal is to dispel as much of that negative energy as possible. So, one Saturday afternoon, in fact, I did what I consider to be a very cathartic experience or activity. I sat down with an 8.5 by 11 tablet of paper, and I started by writing, and I'm talking about going all the way back to kindergarten, writing down everything that came to my conscious mind that I felt was something that someone did to me. I just wrote it down. And all of a sudden, as I'm writing, the tears start to flow. And then I continued to write. Then I started writing down all of the things that I felt that I did against someone else, to transgress against somebody else, tears still falling. And as I'm writing my list, once I'm done with my initial list, I looked at each and every item and I said, for this thing that happened to me in the first grade, John Doe, I forgive you for this. So I forgave the person for that. I then consciously said aloud that I send love and light to this person now, wherever they are. I send love and light to the negative thought form that influenced him to do it. And I send love and light and forgiveness to myself for holding this negative energy in my consciousness for decades. And then I also sent Reiki energy to that. And I ask that the negativity surrounding this issue be transmuted into the love and light of the one infinite creator and remove it from my system. This whole process, not to say that I've done a whole lot of bad things or a lot of bad things have been done to me, but this entire process took over 3 hours in the afternoon. And then as soon as I went through my entire list, I ripped out the sheet of paper, the sheets of paper. It was about 4 sheets of paper, 4 sheets. And I do mean everything that I could think about that I'm still holding on to. Because at the end of the day, many of us, we really do fool ourselves. We say, well, it's okay. I don't think about it. I don't remember it. Yeah, you do. I bet you do. And so I ripped out the sheets of paper, took them outside, had a burning ceremony, and asked that the smoke from these burning pages be reconstituted with the eternal and transmuted into love and light. And from that point forward, every time another thing pops into my consciousness, I go through the same process. I forgive you, Jane Doe, for this. And I forgive myself for this. I send you love and light. I send Reiki energy to you so that it may be transmuted into the love and light of the one infinite creator. So it sounds like a lot, but once that was done, I could honestly, and I did this about maybe 3 years ago, I could honestly say I felt like I'd lost 50 pounds. I truly did. I felt like I lost 50 pounds.
What a
I don't,
beautiful practice. Yeah.
yes, I don't need to carry this anymore. So, yes, I agree with the passage. Forgiving oneself has to be as important as forgiving others.
Yeah, what a beautiful spiritual practice. That seems very much kind of like your own version of Ho'oponopono, along with a few other Reiki and Law of One things thrown in there as well. But yeah, a beautiful thing that I'm guessing more than a couple viewers might find helpful, maybe to try themselves. Did you have any thoughts on that, Morris, or anything to add?
Nothing further to add.
Yeah, super beautiful. We are going to go ahead and take a deeper dive into passages about forgiving others and forgiving selves. So if it's okay with you, why don't we go ahead and move forward and let's take a look at a few passages on forgiving others. This passage was from November 16th, 1986. Quo said, "If you see anything except the face of love, you are having difficulties with perception. Forgive and forgive again. Forgive yourself. Forgive any who seem to have hurt you, remembering that you have faulty perceptions if you do not see love in every situation." And on June 23rd, 1990, the entity known as Latui, who is one of the 3 social memory complexes that make up the entity known as Quo, Latui said, "Each entity's job is to gaze at those situations which confront one, to find love, praise, and the giving of thanks. In the face of great tragedies, this makes no sense to those who are fair weather friends of the Creator and believe that the Creator is the giver out of the spiritual lollipop, the happiness pill, the serenity pill, the wisdom pill. No, my friends, the Creator in his great and terrible wisdom and compassion has given you free will to face all that you must face, including the most difficult and negatively perceived situations, in order that you may do that which is not easy. For how easy is it to forgive the small thing, the slight error of a friend?" Love the idea of the Creator as the giver out of the spiritual lollipop and the happiness pill. That's classic Latui right there, I'll tell you. Beautiful passage, though, and I think kind of calls back to things that we've talked about, where it's easy to forgive the small things. It's the big things that seem unforgivable that are a little bit more challenging, like seeing love in the Holocaust and the gas chambering of 6 million Jews. A little bit hard to see the love in that, a little bit hard to forgive for those who were responsible for that. Any thoughts on anything here, Jasmine?
Yeah, that the very first sentence, I think, is the one that's the most difficult for many of us to be able to see, and you alluded to it, um, to see love in the face of what you perceive to be evil, or if you're a Christian, perhaps wicked. I think that's the hardest thing for us because most of us still hold a duality concept. I am here and I am me. You are there and you are you. You are different. You think different than I do. In fact, you act differently than I do. And since I know I'm right, that means you must be wrong. And so I think part of our challenge is, and it is so hard because we are not a social memory complex yet. It is so hard to really wrap one's heart around the fact that there is only one mind. I believe it was Lao Tzu who said, there is not a world of 10,000 things. There's only one thing, and it's the Tao that cannot be named. So there is only one entity in all of creation. There is, and that one entity only has one mind, and you are merely a manifestation of the thoughts of that entity, as am I. So, in a very real sense, we are closer than brother and sister. We truly emanate from exactly the same source. And that's so hard for us when we see people who appear to have different thoughts and concepts and actions and behaviors than we do. But I think that's the journey, isn't it? That is what we are, that is what we're here in school to learn how to do, to begin to see ourselves and the other not as the other, but as ourselves. And I think when we are able, when we're finally able to do that, then perhaps we'll be ready for the the social memory complex. But right now, duality is our plague. And I think through affirmative prayer and meditation, every day we can get a little closer each time to really being able to see the truth and the reality that there are not two people. There's only one thing, and it is everything.
And it is love.
And it is
Perhaps in some more distorted forms than others, but yeah, as Quo and Rob both said, there's only one thing in the universe, and that's love. What do you think, Morris? Any thoughts, reflections on anything there
Well,
from
yes.
Jasmine or from the
What I
passages?
really liked was on the second paragraph, the spiritual lollipop. That is the type of term that Carla would have used had she been actually involved with when she was dealing with folks in counseling. Yes, we have these difficulties in our life, and in the certainly Western tradition of prayer, and even probably Eastern tradition, we're often praying that our challenges will magically evaporate because God is great and He's going to solve all our problems. Well, we are co creators of what we experience. And yes, it might be a difficult situation we're facing, but quite likely the Creator has given us the tools to deal with that. So while we may pray for that issue to be resolved, we need to be able to step back into our seat of consciousness and recognize what is the lesson in this experience? So these are learning opportunities, and right, they're not easy opportunities quite often. So when they're most difficult is when we need to be able to step back and understand how
towards, and I um, difficult, I think, for folks who have chosen the path of service to others to see things that are being done that are, to our perceptions, clearly, blatantly service to self, used to control, manipulate others, whatever. It's easy to see that as bad. It's easy to see that as evil, as easy as to see murder and rape as evil. I think it's pretty easy to see it that way. But I think, as Jasmine perhaps was alluding to, from the law of one perspective, it's all one thing. It's all creator. It's all creator who's doing the terrible things. It's all creator who's having the terrible things done to it. And that part of the challenge we're being given here is maybe to see, I don't know if it's necessarily to see beyond the dualities. I think the whole point of third density is to make those discernments between who and what we perceive as service to self and service to others, but at least to still be loving of all of those things, and maybe to be able to embrace those service to self entities as our shadow selves, rather than treating them as evil or somebody to be disdained or pushed away. I don't know. What do you think about Jasmine? Want to unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to be real honest here and I'm really just musing. I'm kind of exploring this. But perhaps that is one of the issues that many of us face. Several things that you just said, it's really hard when you see things that are evil, or that when you see that really bad, terrible things are being done to other people, perpetrated by some. That's one side of it. The other side is where when your service to self versus when your service to others, excuse me, versus service to self. Starting from the second one, I think right there, honestly, and I'm just saying this for exploration, that immediately creates a division. So here I am, I'm service to others. These people over here, they're service to self. You've already created a division. Why can't we just be people of service? People of service. And that allows people entree anywhere along the path that their higher self deems is appropriate for them. And when you look at things and you perceive that they are terrible and horrible, and you actually vocalize that, you speak that out into the ethers, you're actually saying, if you're saying this is horrible, then that means you are right. Your position is correct, and your opinion is correct, and everybody who thinks like you is correct, which means everybody that doesn't is incorrect. So once again, you have built-in division right there. So part of the teachings part of the things that we were taught is, when it comes to whether it's forgiveness or anything else, first thing you have to do is you have to lose your positionality. And unfortunately, and Morris alluded to it way earlier, people really do believe that their personal opinions and their positions, they believe that is part of who and what they are. But we're taught that's absolutely incorrect. Your opinion is not who you are. Your position on an issue is not who you are. And it's through affirmative prayer and meditation, you begin to uncover who and what you truly are. Who and what you truly are stands neutral, stands in the middle. You don't have this hard, fast position because, trust me, Jonathan, when you dig your heels in on a point with a position, you are immediately creating the atmosphere for someone to come along and oppose it. And as long as you have two opposing forces, this whole notion of a social memory complex, it just pushes it thousands of years down the road as far in my opinion. So that's kind of like just my musings and my challenge.
Yeah, interesting. I appreciate your thoughts and perspectives on it. And yeah, I know that we don't agree on everything, and there are probably more than a few things that we don't agree on, but that's okay. I think we both respect where we're coming from, and I think I would agree with most everything that you said there. Seems reasonable to me. Did you have any thoughts on anything there, Morris? Anything to add?
Well, Jasmine certainly brings up the issue, the primary issue between where we are in 3D versus 4D, where we're going, and that's how do we work through differences? It's always them versus us. How do we come to where it's all us? And certainly when we're dealing with some of the people that are service to self that do some things that we label as evil, we have a hard time with that. And we've got to try to take a step back and recognize we're all children of God. As co-creators, we're bringing these experiences into our life to learn from. We don't have to like those people necessarily or their behavior. We still need to find a way to love them as fellow children of God. We just may not spend a lot of time around them.
Indeed. Yeah, I think I'm reminded of at least one passage where Ra or Quo said, love is pretty much the answer to every question and the solution to every problem. So however you approach any conversation, however you discuss any sort of situation, if it's done with love, then I think that's probably the most important thing. And to me, loving somebody means being honest. And it means if somebody or some people are doing things that I don't think is particularly kind or loving, then I don't think it unloving to point that out and say that. But again, I think so much of it comes down to whether you're doing it with love or whether you're being judgmental or hateful about it. And that, of course, is up to each person to figure out. Shall we go ahead and take a look at another passage? This is from July 31st, 2007. And Quo said, indeed, my brother, the entities who are in power among your nation states are focused upon those goals that have been the habitual goals of people in power upon your planet for millennia. Those goals are the goals of your great ape ancestors. They revolve around the love of their family and their tribe. When they have defined their tribe, then they attempt to defend their tribe's property and acreage and to gather resources so that their tribe may fare well in a world of diminishing resources. They have been in power before, perhaps many times, and have developed the habit of an unceasing thirst for power. And this they shall not yield in order to make room for service to others' goals, such as true liberty, true equality, true justice, and a truly equitable distribution of the resources of your planet. We ask that you not be overly concerned with the state of the outer workings of your planet. We ask that your concern be to pray that these leaders may be forgiven, for they do not know what they are doing. They will come to dust, as all dragons must. Even now they are dying. The energy of the old world is weakening, and its hold upon the hearts and minds of ordinary people, such as are gathered in the circle of seeking, is lessening every day. If I remember correctly, this was a passage where the question was about war in the Middle East back in 2007. And they were asking why, if so many people are praying for peace in the Middle East, why is there still so much war in the Middle East? And I really appreciate Quo's response in that first paragraph. I believe they said earlier in that session that the purpose of these prayers isn't to try to change the minds of leaders who have no interest in peace or in unity. It's really more to send out a distress call to the universe and to those angelic beings to let them know that there are those among us who pray for peace. And yeah, a lot to unpack from this passage, I think. Morris, any thoughts on anything here?
Well, certainly when I take a look at what's going on in the world and in our country, there are some leaders who covet power to a great degree and create some situations I find troubling. So I have to take a step back and think about these folks. And I add them to my prayer ritual every day because the ones that trouble me are the most are the ones that I need to do the most work on me. And I find prayer, while isn't likely to keep a jerk from being a jerk, it does change me and how I feel about the jerk. And that's what I need to work on, is work on me. They're going to behave the way they're going to behave, but I need to raise my vibration to make this world a better place. Work on me, the man in the mirror. Fix the man in the mirror and you make a better world.
For sure. Yeah, and it reminds me of that part in the very first paragraph there. We're talking about the goals of the great ape ancestors. I think Jasmine was referring to earlier about how so many of our thoughts and things that we think about are really extensions of childhood issues or traumas or things that we've been carrying around for a long time. And so many times our friends in the Confederation have pointed out how so many of the endless cycles of war and bellicosity that we've been experiencing on our planet are really can be traced back to our great ape ancestors and this idea of looking out for your family, looking out for your tribe, hoarding resources in a world that seems to have diminishing resources and such. And I think that's something that we see playing out in so many different places and times these days. Do you have any thoughts on any of that, Jasmine? Or anything
Yeah,
Morris was sharing?
I love what Morris said, because quite honestly, Morris, I've done the same thing. Pray for those leaders. I cannot tell you, I promise you, how many times I've prayed for Putin, how many times I've prayed for Zelensky, how many times I've prayed for Xi Jinping. And again, the prayers that we're taught are affirmative prayers because me, in all of my wisdom, okay, in all of my wisdom, I don't have a hope of a clue of what the master architect of the universe, the builder of the universe, before time was even time, has in plan. Has in place and what plan that energy force has. So I really pray for the best possible outcome for these individuals. But yeah, I agree with that completely. The other thing I wanted to say is, and I think Jonathan alluded to it, these habit patterns that people have built up generationally. That's one of the reasons that I did my little cathartic activity of forgiveness for anyone and everyone, is to begin the process of breaking that cycle, to begin the process of breaking that cycle for my son, for my grandchildren, and going forward. Because I really think it's important for us to understand that the world that I see is not objectively real. The world that you see is not objectively real. We all perceive the world and things that happen in this world through our own filters of perception. And depending on who you are in this incarnation, depending on what trajectory your life has taken, really determines what your filters look like. That's why, again, we're really encouraged to not start labeling things good or bad, right or wrong, bad or great. We're encouraged to not do that for that very reason. What you perceive as wrong, bad, terrible may not be the perception of the person sitting next to you, because we all perceive the world differently.
Sure.
And so when it comes to the leaders today, our political leaders, we have to understand they're human, and they do also see the world through their filters. And quite frankly, many of us, our filters are clogged. Our filters are totally gunked up. That's why, again, meditation and prayer helps to clear those filters. And this passage here reminds me exactly of Jesus's rebuke of the Pharisees. But what Jesus did say is, these are the people that God has put on Moses' throne. So you do need to do what they say. Just be aware, using spiritual discernment, that what they say is not truly what they do. So listen to them, because God has put them there on the throne. Listen to them, do what they say, but just know in your spiritual discernment that the words coming out of their mouths may not in effect be actually true.
Sure. Well, and I appreciate you using the word discernment, because I think perhaps that's where a lot of the misunderstandings or miscommunications may come up, because I think we're very much called on to make discernments between what we perceive as service to self and service to others in our lives and the lives of people around us. But that's different from making judgments as far as somebody or something being good or bad. That's a moral judgment or value that is separate from discernment. So I think I think we are encouraged to make discernments, but that's different from making judgments about whether somebody's good or bad. Does that make sense? Is that something you would agree with, Jasmine?
Um, yeah, I think so. It, to me, discernment is being able to look at something um, and ask my higher self, what am I seeing? Give me sight beyond what my eyes can see right now in this situation or with this person. Making a judgment would be, what I'm seeing is wrong. And so the difference is, with discernment, I'm asking for spiritual clarity. I'm acknowledging the fact that I have filters, and I know for a fact I do not see objective reality the way it truly is. So I'm asking my higher self, help me see what my eyes hide from me, and then surrender in silence and let that come through. To me, that's different than saying, those people over there are cuckoo, they are wrong. That's a judgment.
But that's passing judgment, yeah, and I'm agreeing with you. Passing judgment is not a good thing. I think what you said also reminds me of a second important part, which is acknowledging we could be wrong. No matter how certain any of us are about any discernments we've made, with help from our higher selves or not, I think it's kind of helpful to acknowledge everything that we think and believe, or even for sure could be wrong. We're all seeing the world through distorted eyes and our own biases, for sure. Morris, did you have anything to add before we take a look at another passage?
Just a little bit. I really like the distinction that you and Jasmine have made between discernment and judgment. Judgment is rarely going to improve a situation. Discernment does help you understand the situation and open yourself to guidance.
Yes, exactly. Just exactly what I meant, Morris.
Indeed. Much appreciate the discussion, viewers. Anyone who's still watching this far along, hope you are finding this a worthwhile discussion as well. We do actually have a third passage to look at. Let's take a look at this one. This is also from June 23rd, 1990. This is the second of four passages we're going to look at from this session, where I believe the main question for this session was, in fact, about forgiveness. Here, Latwii says, forgiving entities does not mean that it is necessary for the forgiving entity to continue to accept acts upon the part of the other self, which are subjectively seen to be abusive and destructive enough that the self, or those young selves for whom you are responsible, is in danger of any kind, be it mental or physical. But as you do those things that you must, as you decide upon the separation because you see that union is impossible, as the other entity cannot do the work that you are doing in forgiveness, you simply do that which you have to do with love and compassion and peace, staying within the forgiveness, accepting the unacceptable that may occur, loving the unlovable that has brought about the current situation by its catalyst. You cannot adjust other entities' states of self-forgiveness or forgiveness of others. You may drop the seeds and you see yourself as the Johnny Appleseed of forgiveness, for forgiveness is the essence of what this instrument would call the kingdom of heaven. And the seeds of forgiveness are like leaven that lighten and lift and make delicious the whole loaf of life and love and relationships, but you cannot do others' work for them. I really appreciate this passage because I think it highlights something that may or may not be obvious to other people, that forgiving somebody doesn't mean you have to keep accepting them if they are continuing to abuse you. If you are in an abusive relationship with somebody, you can forgive them, but that doesn't mean you have to stay in an abusive relationship. It doesn't mean you have to continue allowing that person to abuse you or others around you. Sometimes a separation is called for, but as they're saying, doing it with love and compassion as opposed to anger and hatred and such, I think might be the key here. What do you think, Jasmine? Any thoughts on anything in this passage?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, people that I perceive have transgressed against me, of course I forgive them, but I did not get welcome tattooed to my forehead. I'm not a welcome mat. So no, I'm not going to be around for you to continue to harm me. So what's that old saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So yeah, I agree with that completely. The other thing that I think the passage kind of alluded to is once you forgive someone, once you do offer forgiveness, don't sit there waiting for them to say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and wrap you in a big bear hug. And because they may say, "Phew, whatever, sort of thing. So understand that forgiveness is not dependent on the other person receiving and accepting it either. The point is, remember, this is my opinion. It's all about you. None of this is ever about them. It's all about you and clearing negativity from your consciousness and raising your level of consciousness. So the idea of offering forgiveness, and in fact, a couple of the people that I forgave are not even on this planet right now. They've transitioned. So how could they accept my forgiveness? Sort of thing. So yes, I agree. I concur completely. Just because you forgive someone doesn't mean you need to stay in the fray and continue to be a victim, because then that really starts to speak to some other psychological issues that may be going on with you. And just because you forgive someone and they don't reciprocate, that's fine. It's all about you and raising your vibration.
Yeah, it's a great reminder that, none of us have control in what happens in the outer world, in the political arenas or anything like that, but we do have total control over how we respond to it inside, and that's something I am reminding of myself every day. Do you have any thoughts, anything to add, Morris?
Well, Jasmine covered that really well. It is important to recognize forgiving someone isn't going to change their behavior at all necessarily. If they're a jerk, they're still a jerk. All we're doing is relieving ourselves the burden of holding on to those transgressions. And then choosing to stay in a situation where you're being abused is probably not very wise. If someone is going to be abusive, That's a signal to you to put yourself in a position. The Creator gives us the opportunity to make choices, put ourselves in a situation where we're not going to be abused. Now, I'm going to take that one step further and talk about slavery. Slavery is an example where someone may be abused and not have the opportunity to get out of that situation. And certainly in earlier times, there was a lot more of that. And that's a situation where, as a co-creator, you created through your pre-incarnative choices to endure something like this. So then you need to look at how you're responding to the situation that you cannot escape from. Where is the lesson in this? Can there still be love in the moment? Can you still see the Creator at work and just find ways not to respond in ways that actually put you in position to incur even more abuse?
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate your bringing that up because this passage was, in fact, reminding me of those passages in the Raw Contact where they talked about the thought wars or thought battles that happen between primarily fourth density, I think, social memory complexes, where it's this conflict, shall we say, between service to self social memory complexes and service to other social memory complexes, where the STS entities are basically trying to enslave the STO entity, and the STO entities choose not to be enslaved. But how do you do that? Do you fight back? And they're saying, no, you just send them love and light and respectfully decline the service that they're offering, which is enslavement. And I think the same thing applies in third density as well to entities or groups that are trying to enslave you. You don't have to allow it. You just don't have to fight back with violence or anything. You can just send love and light and decline to be enslaved. Yeah, are there
I
anything?
just
Yeah, go ahead, Jasmine.
I was just wanting to make the point that, and I don't really know how this fits, but I just thought to say it. Anything you fight against grows stronger. And so again, we're taught that, and this is a word that I know in this society, in this culture, is really a four-letter word, but it starts with an S and it ends with a surrender. We're taught that if our minds are really focused on the inside, on expanding our consciousness and our awareness of ourselves, even though we're not separate, but expanding our awareness and our consciousness, then all we have to do is open up, surrender, and allow that pure white auric light of God's love to flow into us. And when we do that, we find that there's not a lot of battles that we really must engage in. But that was my only point when you said, do we fight against it? My only thought was everything I've ever been taught is when you're talking about consciousness, in consciousness work, everything you fight against actually grows stronger in your awareness. And I think the reasons are obvious because you are giving it mental energy. I'm here fighting against these thoughts and these impulses. Well, I'm giving it energy. And the more energy I give it, the more it grows.
Right. Yeah, and I would only add that fighting really only serves to perpetuate those seemingly endless karmic cycles of war and
Yeah.
bellicosity that we're really trying to solve. So, for sure, fighting back is not a good thing. And that's why I believe in those sessions of the raw contact I was referring to about the thought wars. They said it's usually fourth density social memory complexes on the STO side that participate because it isn't until later in fourth density that they finally learn the wisdom of refraining from battle and seeing the futility of fighting in the first place. So much in agreement with you. Morse, did you have anything to add before we take a look at another topic, another set of passages?
Nothing further.
Sounds good. Well, let us take a look at a somewhat long passage on forgiving self. This is also from that same session with Latwii on June 23rd, 1990, and this has been edited for brevity. Latwii said, "Forgiveness is first the turning to a power greater than yourself, and a giving to that power of an entire situation, that you may be given the consolation and the healing that you require in order to forgive yourself, whether you are the wronged one or the self-perceived wrongdoer. There is always a lack of forgiveness of the self that seems to be held more tightly than the forgiveness of others. You gaze too close into the mirror of this illusion and your manifestation within it. Your birthright is to be forgiven, to realize each self-perceived error and to forgive oneself for it and move on. Thus you come to a respect and an honoring and a loving and a nurturing of yourself. The key to forgiveness of others is the forgiveness of the self. Release, release, release. Give back to the forces of the universe those energies which are easily absorbed in infinity, and leave them not to pollute your own feelings, your mind, or your heart, but rather let forgiveness flow as a sweet river under the surface of all that you do and say. If one says, 'I am not worthy,' there is a lack of awareness of one's birthright, moving from the temporary to the eternal, and gazing at yourself as would a most loving mother. Forgive yourself, accept yourself, allow yourself to be yourself, and lead the concern for the self away from the center stage, for it is as dangerous as the blinders upon the horse to those who can see but will not. Soften, allow, forgive, and turn, and ask to be in a tabernacle in the immediate presence of the infinite Creator. Ask, though you feel unworthy, to be that person who experiences unconditional love. Let love fill you, which you naturally wish to return. And as you more and more perceive yourselves as children of the great Father and Mother of the universe, you can come to treasure yourself, for you are all treasures. When the work of forgiveness of self has been done to the point where you feel that maintenance is that which is necessary rather than complete concentration, then and only then turn to the attempt to forgive others. It is not selfish to do the work upon the self first. It is necessary. It is mandatory. You must bring your own personality and biases into balance. Else, how can you be the house of the Father? How can that light shine through you if you are lurching about, wasting the energy of love in the distortions of self-immolation? Again, I really love the poetic language and the turn of phrase, and Latwii saying, why waste the energy of love in the distortions of self-immolation, of burning yourself alive? Really lovely visual, I think, to go with this passage. What do you think, Morris? Any thoughts on this one or the slide before this?
Well, I think the key here, what they're telling us is we've got to forgive ourselves first. That is part of it, and that's where we often run into our biggest barriers. We identify the issues with others much more easily, and with ourselves, we just tend to hang on. So it's release, release, release. Saying I forgive, but continuing to stew on it in my thoughts, I haven't really forgiven because I haven't released.
Indeed, well said. Anything to add, Jasmine?
I'm just, again reminded of a passage in the Bible or verse in the Bible. And I'm paraphrasing, you comment on the splinter in my eye, yet ignore the log in yours. And so, yeah, it was exactly what I was saying a few minutes ago. It really is all about you. It's all about me. And that sounds like a very selfish thing, but you know what? Until I'm right in here, until I get myself fully connected and release all of that negativity in here, it's kind of like, what good am I? What good am I to the rest of the world? And I don't really mean that in a negative way. I do think I have value, even though, because I'm still working, I'm still working on self. But I think it really is very, very important that we learn to first be aware of exactly who and what we are. I honestly, in my heart of hearts, believe that if most people really understood who and what they are, half of the issues we have today with each other would simply fade into the background. And it does start with accepting that in on this third density planet, in these vehicles, of course you've made mistakes. Of course you've said things that you really wish you hadn't said, or done things that you really wish you hadn't done. The one infinite creator is not looking for perfection in third density humans. So forgiving yourself, I don't know, is it a form of self-punishment, almost like self-flagellation for withholding forgiveness for yourself? So absolutely, I think it's important that um, we do learn to forgive ourselves. And like I said again, 5 or 6 minutes ago, I think the key is surrender. Just surrender. First of all, surrender to the fact that you are not a perfect being in these vehicles. In these vehicles, we are not perfect beings. At our core, our spirit being, of course, our higher self is. But understanding that we're working with the tools that we were given, and to be gentle with ourselves, to show grace to ourselves, and to extend that gentleness and grace towards others.
Yeah, I appreciate your saying that. And it certainly reminds me of the first sentence in the first paragraph on this slide, where you're saying if one says, I am not worthy, there's a lack of awareness of one's birthright. It's as dangerous as the blinders upon a horse to those who can see but will not. Had so many people in our study group in our Zoom session say that they have an easy time forgiving others. It's forgiving themselves that they have a hard time with. And it often is something along the lines of they just don't feel worthy. And yeah, I hope this passage comes as some consolation. I hope what you shared comes as some consolation, because that is indeed what we have been encouraged to do through the discipline of personality, which is to know yourself for who you are and accept yourself for who you are and become the creator. Because yes, you are certainly worthy because you are the one infinite creator. Everyone watching this is the one infinite creator. So indeed, of course, you're worthy of cutting yourself a little bit of slack and forgiving. Anything to add, Morris?
No, I think you covered it well.
That's good. Anything else to add, Jasmine?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
Sounds good. I did have a note to myself that I really wanted to express my appreciation for the image on the first slide, I think, where they talk about, where's the infinity part? Yeah. The key to forgiveness of others is the forgiveness of the self. Release, 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 give back to the forces of the universe, those energies which are easily absorbed in infinity, and leave them not to pollute your own feelings, your mind, or your heart. Really, again, to me, I get a beautiful visual of that, of the infinity. It's like, to me, it's like I'm picturing a swimming pool, a big, huge Olympic-sized swimming pool that you put one drop of black ink into. That's the negative thoughts or feelings that you got. Let that go. Let it dissolve away. It's nothing. Or imagine a big swirling Milky Way galaxy of light, and you put one little drop of black ink in there. Let it go. It's nothing. It's meaningless. It's a beautiful image. Anybody have any thoughts, comments on that, or anything else on this slide? We kind of skipped over the first part of this passage and went to the second part. Anything anybody wanted to add?
No.
That's good. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple passages then on forgiving the unforgivable. On May 19th, 1985, another Confederation entity known as Lilima said, "It is true that it is the lot, as you have said, of entities upon your planet and with this illusion to experience that which seems most difficult. For how else shall you test your own ability to express the love and light of the one Creator? The journey that you are upon is one that has no end. Thus, you must continue in some way to provide yourselves with further opportunities to develop this potential to love all entities and to see light within all experience. If you have no such difficulties, then these abilities would remain at a given level with no further opportunity for enhancement. Within your illusion, that which seems difficult, that which seems unforgivable, that which seems unacceptable, are those experiences which test your strength to love those who seem unlovable and to forgive that which seems unforgivable. Thus, you are as the one who lifts the weight. As the strength is gained, further weight must be added if further strength is desired. When you have passed from this illusion and you look back upon it and thumb through your own book of life, you will have quite a different point of view. You will see those times which seem most difficult as being the greatest opportunity to love. And those times then will seem as great treasures, whereas now they seem as great burdens. It is all a matter of the point of view, my brother. You have the narrower point of view now in order that you may test and strengthen your ability to widen this point of view. Again, so many beautiful gems in this passage, so many things to look at. I really appreciate the references to weight training or resistance training, as it's called. All those things that seem so terrible now are really like heavy weights that enable you to strengthen your muscles better than if you were using like really dinky light weights. It's just a beautiful image, I think. Jasmine, any thoughts, reflections on this?
Just that it's difficult. This is one of those really difficult things. Um, Learning to forgive when the transgression has been of such a phenomenal nature. The only thing I can say about that, and I'm just kind of reflecting on some things that in my own personal past, um, those are the things that, it sounds clichéic, but made me the strongest and the most determined.
Yeah.
And had those things not happen, I wonder who I might be today. Today, I'm happy with who I am, despite, or because, I guess, because of some of those transgressions that happened. It is a very, very difficult thing. But just, I think if we just learn to take solace, I guess it's the F word, faith. Have faith that this is being sent to you, or this has been perpetrated upon you, not because of an entity that some call God that is wicked or punishing you. Just have faith in the fact that it is for your good somehow, some way, and I know it doesn't seem like it right now. It may seem like it in 10 years from now, though.
Or
Just
after
have
you leave this incarnation. Yeah.
or after you leave this incarnation. Oh, that's actually a very, very good point. Because if you're not able to make peace with it and forgive in this incarnation, you will have to revisit it in the next.
Yeah.
And like I said, and I'm stumbling because I don't want to make light of the fact that there are people out there who are enduring incredible suffering right now. And I'm saying, well, it's for your own good. It comes to going inward to your higher self, asking for the strength that is already there, but you just at this point are not tapped into it for. So ask for the ability to find that strength again, tap into it, have faith that you will absolutely come out the other end a stronger spiritual being. And that's all faith. That's all it is.
Yeah, and it's a great callback to one of the first passages that we looked at here, the one with the happiness pill, where they were saying these difficult times are not for those who are fair weather friends of the Creator, who see the Creator as the dispenser of the spiritual lollipop and the happiness pill, but the Creator whose terrible wisdom gave us the free will to choose to come here and experience all this fucking shit specifically so that we could grow and become better people from it. So if you are going through terrible pain and suffering, just know that you asked for it, viewer, believe it or not. It might not be clear until after this incarnation when you do your post-incarnation review. But hopefully, as they said here, when you look through your own book of life after incarnation, you will see those times that seemed most difficult were the ones that really did help you the most. But as I said at the beginning, I could be wrong about that as well as everything else. Morris, do you have anything to add?
I think you and Jasmine both covered this issue really well. We are co-creators. We actually bring into our experience the opportunities to learn. And the ones that are the most difficult, this passage describes, are our greatest opportunities for learning. So we've been co-creators. If we can take a step back away from the intensity of the experience and look at how we're responding to that experience, find that lesson. If we find the lesson, it makes this difficulty somewhat more bearable as we see ourselves as creator bringing this to ourselves.
Beautifully said. And a great reminder that we had a podcast episode titled Creators and Co-Creators, where we unpacked all of that and looked at some beautiful passages on those teachings. So, as always, appreciate the sharing there, Morris. Did anybody have anything else to add on this one before we look at another passage? This one is from February 23rd, 1990. This is from the entity known as Latwii again, and this also has been edited for brevity, believe it or not. Latwii said, "You yourself have within you biases which have been dearly won and to which you should listen. Why then, in all compassion, you are judge, but you are a judge of compassion. And if words that are less than easy must be said, yet they are said with love and compassion, carefully and courteously and honestly and fearlessly. And in such communication lies the beginning of forgiveness of those you feel may have wronged you or those whom you feel you have wronged. There is no difference between those two in terms of forgiveness. They are two sides of the same coin. Forgiveness is a universal currency, a kind of money, shall we say, since your people are so interested in the power that money has. Spend that currency with a whole heart. In order to forgive the unforgivable, which is part of the lesson of learning to love without condition, it is extremely helpful to take that person within yourself and earnestly and humbly to pray for that person. For as you pray and intercede for such a person, you will grow to love that person. You will have compassion upon that person. And these changes in consciousnesses are wonderful catalysts for that person. That person may also begin the long cycle of learning to forgive. Your biases are not incorrect. You have earned them. Do not abandon them and simply say that all things are acceptable. You are miles and miles away from this elevation. First, you must learn to love, and you must learn to have wisdom, and you must learn to have compassionate wisdom. Right at this moment in your development, you are simply attempting to love. Of yourself, you cannot do this, but the great original thought of love is with you. You may block it out, you may deafen yourself against its call, but it lies beyond the door that you can open at any time, waiting to comfort, to ease, and to offer grace. Again, another beautiful passage, and Latwii again loved the visual of the currency. Forgiveness is a universal currency, a kind of money, shall we say, since you people have such a thing with money. Spend that currency with your whole heart. Beautiful passage. What do you think, Morris? Any thoughts, reflections on anything else here?
Well, you just went after the line that I thought was the best in the whole thing, how forgiveness as a universal currency and how we can give that freely.
Yeah, and this would probably be a good time to remind our viewers, as I said at the beginning of this session, all of these words here and all the words from everything that we read came through the process of channeling. So in this case, this was conscious channeling. So the person who I assume was Carla in this case was in a very deep meditative state. And as these words were coming out of her mouth, or the channel's mouth, they really didn't know what they were saying. They were just trying to make what they felt was telepathic contact with what they believed to be an extraterrestrial entity. And these are the words that came to them. And I think it's just such a beautiful thing, since I don't know anybody like flesh and blood human being who normally talks like this. I can't think of anybody who would have come up with that metaphor and that turn of phrase. And I think it's just really beautiful and inspiring to imagine where all this stuff is coming from. Any thoughts, Jasmine? Anything else in this passage that struck you or resonated with you?
Well, there's something that struck me, and it's one of those things where, excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes, my little Bluetooth speaker just crapped out on me.
Oh, okay. It was on your end, not mine, because I saw the little speaker come up. It's something that I suppose I have to do more meditation and prayer on. It looks like it's the second from the last paragraph where Latouise says your biases are not incorrect, you've earned them. Do not abandon them, and simply say that all things are acceptable. You're miles away from that elevation. And then he goes on in the next paragraph to say that right now in your development, it's just a matter of learning to love. In my opinion, and I'm not 4 or 3 billion years old, obviously, so I haven't been around as long as they have. It seems for most humans right now, just the reverse is true. We can understand unconditional love. Anyone who's ever, for example, only one example, anyone who's ever had a child knows what unconditional love is. Um, but the idea of go ahead and hold on to your biases and just say that everything is unacceptable, I think that's actually easier for most of us, for many of us to do. It's we talk about, the Buddha talks about the great middle way. That's not a difficult concept. All it requires is that, as I said earlier, you lose your opinion out, you lose your positionality, and you drop your judgments. Then all of a sudden you are walking the middle way. You hear something, you observe that you heard it, you form no opinion on it, you don't judge it, it passes. But the idea of looking into the face of someone who is so radically different from you and loving them and then loving them unconditionally, to me, that seems difficult.
Oh, for sure.
You know, any thoughts? I mean, like I said, it's just, you know, I'm not there yet. And I'm not saying I disagree, but I'm just saying I don't see it the way Latouise sees it. I think losing your biases, losing your positionality, being neutral is much easier for most of us than the concept of love, than unconditional love.
I suppose it depends. And can you hear me okay? My mic speaker system kind of went out. Are
I
you hearing me
I
okay?
can hear you. It's just it's like you're far away. It's like you're far away from me.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think we're going to have to go with it at this point. As long as you can hear me, I'm hoping
Yeah.
it comes out okay on the recording. I think a lot of it depends on how you define the word biases. I wasn't thinking biases referred to like your political biases or something mundane like that. I took this to refer to your bias towards the path of service to others or towards service to self. So I think they're saying whatever you have learned, not only from this incarnation, but from your previous incarnations, that have led to your current level of polarization, let's say, on the service to others path. Saying it's not incorrect. Don't let go of that and just accept that anything service to self or service to others, it's all fine and acceptable. They're saying you're miles away from that elevation. When you get to sixth density, then you can see beyond the polarity and the positive and the negative. But here, I think you're called to make those discernments and to I think compassionate wisdom is the key. They're saying that you can still make these discernments, but as we said, you're not passing judgments on people. You're just making discernments between what you perceive as service to others and service to self, and being compassionate in the wisdom that you use and how you resolve whatever conflicts may arise as a result of that. That's my take on it. Do you have any thoughts, Morris?
No, I think you've covered it quite well.
Does that make sense to you, Jasmine? Anything to add?
Just that the service to others path, choosing between the service to self and service to others, because no, I didn't read it like that at all. And maybe what I really needed to do was read the passages that preceded these. But I don't know, it just occurred to me that service to others path is really service to self when you think about it. So learning to choose which path you want to be on based on some biases from a former incarnation will lead you to choose one of the two paths, when deep down inside we all know that both paths are service to self at the end of the day.
For our viewers who might not be up on that distinction, could you share how service to others path is service to self?
So if I say that I'm on a service to others path, I'm going to refrain from doing certain things, and I'm going to do certain things that have a direct impact on others. But by refraining and by doing these positive things for others, what I'm doing is I'm really putting credits in my karmic bank. So it's really, even though I'm doing it outwardly, I'm doing it to help others. In effect, the one of the benefactors is myself. And I think in a balanced spiritual approach, isn't that just the way it should be? The things that I do not only help you, but they also help me. And to me, that's balance.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for me anyway. It's important to be real about it, you know. So I can say I'm a great philanthropist, and and I do all of these things for other people. But understand, many folks, and you may have seen some of them on TV or in other podcasts, many people really do for other people so that they can be seen. It's not because they have this true unconditional love for this other person that is their brother. In fact, not their brother, that is them. So ultimately, in my opinion, if you're following a true path of spirituality, virtually everything you do by design benefits somebody else and you at the same time. That's balance.
Well, and if
I'd like to take that a
that
little bit further, if I could, just because I think that can be misunderstood. I don't disagree with Jasmine at all, but I think the key is intention. Intention. Everything we do is serving the creator. No argument. Everything serves the creator. But when we're talking about spiritual evolution, yes, if we're service to others, we are, in a sense, serving ourselves, in the sense we're increasing our spiritual evolution, but our intention is to grow spiritually through our service to other selves.
Yes.
And if we're out there doing good things in our community so that people see us and people praise us for doing good things, well, then our intention is not so much serving the other people, but making ourselves look good, which is service to self. Okay, everything is still service to the Creator, but the intentions are different and the spiritual evolution is different. The path you're on are for third density, we have this the density of choice. We make a choice to serve others, or we make a choice to serve self, and that affects where we do the rest of our next phase of spiritual development. And fourth density, is it a service to others, planet, or a service to self? So yes, everything serves us because we are the creator. Everything serves the creator, but we have to make the choice about which path we're going to choose to walk as we service the creator.
Yes. And thank you for that word, Morris, intentionality. I think so much of what we do and what we talk about, it all depends on the sponsoring thought. So, and that's another reason why, again, we're encouraged not to necessarily judge something good or bad because you don't know what the sponsoring thought is behind the behavior or the action of the other person. But yes, you're right.
Yeah, that's
Intentionality
what I was going
is,
to say. I mean,
yeah,
it's hard enough to know what one's own intentions are, how pure one's intentions are, much less knowing what someone else's intentions are.
yeah.
But again, I think that just goes back to what we were saying about making discernments. You're making discernments the best you can without passing judgment on somebody being good or bad. Beautiful discussion. I think we have one more set of passages to look at. Did anybody have anything to add before we go on?
Nope.
That's good. Well, let's take a look at one more passage on forgiveness and healing. This is the fourth and final passage from that June 23rd, 1990 session with Latwii, which was about forgiveness. And here Latwii said, "What we are talking about when we talk about forgiveness is healing. The hope of each entity is to become healed, and healing may be defined as that state wherein the karma is balanced with each soul with whom you come into contact, and your realization of yourself is a realization of yourself as whole, perfect, beautiful, and a child of the Infinite One. Does this make you special and important? May it never be. This makes you the servant of all. With compassion comes humility, and you would gladly serve, as did the one known as Jesus, by washing the feet, by doing the unattractive things that make up the daily run of existence. Because since you are forgiven, you dwell in a state of redemptive joy, so that every dish you wash, every window that you clean, every flower that you touch is alive to the light within you and responds in love. May you turn from error when it is perceived, without being discouraged that you have made an error, and ask forgiveness. Deep within yourself, there is the Creator Self, the redemptive and forgiving Self, the source of forgiveness. Allow it to flood you. Allow it to make you thankful. Allow the feeling of healing to take place, and know that you are self-forgiven. Then turn to the world, and by the power of Christ consciousness within, you shall constantly be renewed. And as more and more of you do this, the face of the earth shall be transformed. That is how powerful forgiveness is. Beautiful passage, and I think really sums things up nicely as far as why forgiveness is such a key to the service to others path, because just the simple act of forgiveness, the more and more people do this within themselves, changes the world. And that's a beautiful thing, I think, to look forward to. Any thoughts on anything here, Jasmine?
I agree completely that forgiveness is healing. It's healing to yourself. And for those who accept your forgiveness, it can also be tremendously healing for them. I think about the person that I saw in the grocery store 2 decades later. If she had asked me 19 years ago for forgiveness and I granted it, how blessed she would have been for the last 19 years without having in the back of her mind this thought of this person that she did this to. So I agree completely. I'm struggling to think of when forgiveness might be a bad idea and when it might be inappropriate, uh, because it heals both you and the other.
Can you think of any situations where forgiveness is a bad idea?
Right now, I can't. I just, maybe by the time Morris responds, I'll think of an example, but I really can't.
I
Yeah,
can't off the top of my head either.
yeah.
Morris, any thoughts? Can you think of a situation where forgiveness is a bad idea?
Some form of forgiveness, I think, is always appropriate when we're dealing with conflictual issues. But I want to take it one step further here, the last part of the first paragraph. And this goes back to some of the regressions we've heard about when people were dealing with lives in higher densities. And it's how we live our lives. It's describing here dwelling in a state of redemptive joy, so that everything you do, if you do it with a sense of serving your fellow man and do it with joy in your heart, you change how you experience life.
Yes.
Someone was describing just the act of cleaning a toilet. And if you're doing it with love because you're serving your community that's using that bathroom, and it's your service to the Creator, and you're feeling love in your heart, it's a completely different experience of walking in that bathroom and, gosh, this is another thing on my to-do list, and I can't stand that I have this on my list. Why isn't somebody else doing it? Completely different mindset, completely different life experience when we go through life recognizing that what we're doing each day with the intention of serving our fellow man lifts us. We're tired at the end of the day, but our heart is still full of love and joy, and we live life from a completely different perspective.
Yeah, beautifully said. Beautifully said. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what that passage was where they talked specifically about cleaning the toilet with love in your heart. I believe they've actually done that a couple of times, but I think they were talking about how things in time space are different from space time, whereas in space time, the world as we know it, then of course somebody who's a great healer and is healing 1,000 people is doing more service to others than someone who's cleaning a toilet. But in space time, where intentions are real and the material things are an illusion, that's not necessarily the case. And if somebody's
Right.
cleaning the toilet with love in their heart, they're actually being of more service to others, they're saying, than somebody who's healing 1,000 people without love in their heart necessarily. So I hope that's the correct session, but if that's the one, yeah, really, really beautiful. Much appreciate that. Anything to add, Jasmine?
No, thank you. And I still can't think of a time when forgiveness is the wrong thing to do. I'm sure there is one, but I can't think of it.
The only thing I could think of is if, again, if you're in a abusive relationship and you feel like you need to forgive that person and stay in the abusive relationship rather than forgiving the person and getting out of that relationship, I could say that maybe that is perhaps a less wise choice to make. But again,
Well, I think in that situation, you forgive either way. The action is, do I go or do I stay? And so that to me is something separate. The action is still forgive them. They've already consumed too much of your psychological and emotional energy by the pain that they've inflicted upon you. every day you stand in opposition to forgiveness is one more day you allow that energy to be part of your energy system, part of your consciousness. So that's pretty
Yeah,
good.
not disagreeing with you on that.
Yep.
Not disagreeing. Yeah, and I think this is just a beautiful passage to close on. I know our friends in the Confederation have said more than a few times that really, if you want to change the outer world, the best way to do that is change the inner world. Again, you can't control what happens in the world in the political sphere or whatever, but you have 100% control over how you respond to it. And that forgiveness in terms of stopping those wheels of karma and violence and bellicosity and aggression, I think it's a beautiful path forward to the future that we're all hoping for. Anybody have any last thoughts on this before we wrap things up?
Jonathan, I appreciate you pulling these podcasts together. They're great learning, teaching opportunities. You put a lot of effort into it, and we applaud you.
It's been a great discussion. It's been wonderful, and I really appreciate both of you being here. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at where do we go from here? What are some takeaway lessons that perhaps our viewers might want to remember from our almost 2-hour discussion here? I've got 5 that come to mind. First, forgiveness is indeed key to stopping the wheels of karma. If you don't remember anything else about this lesson, then that would probably be a good thing to remember. And second, forgiving yourself is as important as forgiving others. And if you feel like you are unworthy, then you have blinders on. And remember, you are the one infinite creator. You are most definitely worthy of cutting yourself some slack and forgiving yourself. And if you can remember that the hardest times that you go through in your life are usually the greatest opportunities to grow. If you look back at what have been some of the most difficult experiences in your life, as I do, I think would probably agree those are the experiences that actually helped you most to become a better person. And that forgiving is not the same thing as accepting abuse or enslavement. And that forgiveness does indeed change or heal the world. All important lessons to remember, I think. Morris, any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add? Any last thoughts on this subject?
Well, you had 5 wonderful selections there, Jonathan, but I like the number 5 especially. Forgiveness changes, heals the world, but it heals ourselves.
Because we are the world, I believe, as has been said. Thank you for adding that. Jasmine, anything to add? Any final takeaway lessons? Any thoughts on this subject?
I think those are 5 excellent points to take away. I would only add to breathe, release, surrender, forgive, move on.
Beautifully said. Thank you for adding that. Sounds good. I do also want to remind our viewers that if you enjoyed this episode, enjoyed this discussion, you might want to check out our podcast episode on karma, where we looked at some more passages on the subject and dug a little deeper than we did today. There was also an episode that we did not that long ago called Looking for Love, where we looked at some beautiful passages about how to find love in the most difficult situations where it doesn't seem there's any love to be found, how to love the unlovable, and how to forgive the unforgivable. Also a great episode. Otherwise, it is, of course, time for one last thing, and that is our pop quiz. Pop quiz, of course, is something we like to do at the end of these episodes, just to end our otherwise serious discussions on a somewhat lighter note, and maybe look for law of one connections in pop culture. Since today's episode was about forgiveness, it seems only fitting that we should have a pop quiz on the Academy Award-winning Clint Eastwood movie from 1992 that pretty much turned the movie Western genre on its head. You know what movie I'm talking about, panelists?
No.
Unforgiven?
Indeed, Unforgiven.
Oh, huh.
Have you seen that one, Jasmine? Do you know that movie?
No, I don't think I may have, no, I haven't seen it.
Have you seen it, Morris?
I have not.
All right. But at least you're familiar with it. Yeah. For those who
Great
didn't know, yeah,
actors.
Clint Eastwood obviously is
Great
known for doing
actors.
a lot of Western movies and known for playing the iconic cowboy hero. This is one he directed where he kind of turned that genre on its head and instead played a character cowboy who was really not particularly heroic and killed a lot of women and children, I believe, in the process of his past that he was trying to find forgiveness from. So, viewers who have seen this movie, this pop quiz is for you. Let's try. Got a few questions about this one, see how many you can answer correctly. Your first question is this. Who bought the rights to direct Unforgiven before Clint Eastwood? Was it A, Francis Ford Coppola, B, Martin Scorsese, or C, Steven Spielberg? Any wild guesses on this one, panelists?
Francis Ford Coppola.
I have no clue.
Want to take a guess?
I think it's not Steven Spielberg. It's not his type. So I could see Scorsese doing this.
Yeah, I could too. Yeah, this does not seem a lot of violence in it. It is fairly dark Western for sure. But yeah, apparently correct answer is A. Francis Ford Coppola did indeed option for the screenplay in the 1980s, but he couldn't get it financed. So Clint Eastwood picked it up and actually kept it for several years because he knew he wanted to star in it, but he knew he didn't feel he was old enough at the time for it. So he waited until he was old enough to play the lead role. And it is a great movie, too. Highly recommend it for sure. How about second question? The guy who wrote the screenplay for Unforgiven co-wrote the screenplay for what? A, Blade Runner, B, 12 Monkeys, or C, Lady Hawk? Those are all three really great science fiction movies, which viewers may or may not be familiar with. Any guesses?
12 Monkeys.
Blade Runner.
And
correct answer is all of the above. Interesting.
Oh, really?
His name is David Peoples, and he wrote or co-wrote the screenplay for
wow.
Unforgiven, and was also similarly involved with Blade Runner, 12 Monkeys, and Lady Hawk. All really great science fiction movies. Have you guys seen any of those? Have you seen Blade Runner, 12 Monkeys?
I've seen 12 Monkeys and Lady Hawk.
Oh, nice. Lady Hawk is one that usually people haven't seen. That one I don't think got a lot of buzz or a lot of viewers and probably didn't necessarily get great reviews either. But it had Rutger Hauer, who was the android in Blade Runner, as well as Matthew Broderick playing a really great character. Yeah, great movies. Love 12 Monkeys. Definitely one of my favorite time travel movies. And Blade Runner, of course, is classic science fiction. Do you have any favorites out of those, Morris? Have you seen all of those?
I thought Blade Runner was good.
Great movie. So far ahead of its time. If I remember right, it bombed at the box office. It did not do well when it first opened, but it is now regarded as classic and visionary and ahead of its time. Are you ready for your last question? Who was Eastwood's first choice to play the role of Ned Logan? Was it A, Denzel Washington, B, Forrest Whitaker, C, Lawrence Fishburne, or D, Morgan Freeman? It did end on
Morgan Freeman's great.
But who was Eastwood's first choice? Do you know?
Lawrence Fishburne.
Great guess. Morris?
Morgan Freeman?
Great guess.
Yeah.
Those are all great actors, but I believe the correct answer is, in fact, D, Morgan Freeman. That part was actually
to be older. You needed an older actor for that part.
What's up, Morris?
You needed an older actor for that part. Morgan Freeman plays the part.
Yeah, for sure. All four of those actors are great actors who have been great in other movies, but Morgan Freeman was great in this one. He's been so great in so many other movies as well. Are you guys Morgan Freeman fans?
Oh, yes.
Of course.
The voice of God himself, for sure.
absolutely. That was John Denver's movie. He was God.
That was George Burns. Yeah, in the
That
John
was
Denver movie.
George Burns. Okay.
Morgan Freeman played God in the Bruce Almighty comedy with Jim Carrey and Evan.
That's right.
With Steve Carell, I believe, who played God there. Did great. Panelists, as always, it's been a joy hanging out with you. Thank you for sharing your love and your wisdom here. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all our friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done, continue to do in service to others. And to you who are watching this on video at some time in the near or distant future, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We are sending your love light and we are receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator. Adonai, namaste. Say goodbye, panelists.
Goodbye.